Hey, good evening, everybody. Mark Basinski from Tried It For You, and I'm in my basement. And so, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that my wife and I bought 22 acres of land, and with that land, it came with a couple of wells that were already drilled for us, as well as a septic. Now, when I tested the well, I don't know what the guy was thinking before me, but the pump that he put in there only pumps 3 gallons per minute, which for the way I like to take showers and use stuff around the house, it's highly inefficient. Hey, good evening, everybody. Mark Basinski from Tried It For You, and I'm in my basement. And so, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that my wife and I bought 22 acres of land, and with that land, it came with a couple of wells that were already drilled for us, as well as a septic. Now, when I tested the well, I don't know what the guy was thinking before me, but the pump that he put in there only pumps 3 gallons per minute, which for the way I like to take showers and use stuff around the house, it's highly inefficient. So I'm going to replace that pump with a new one. Now, bought this pump off of Amazon. It's about 36 inches. It's made by iMeshbean. I've never heard of them before, but when I read the reviews on this thing, they got some very good reviews, except for one thing. Now, when you're looking at your pump, you need to determine how deep that you're going to be running this thing. Okay. Generally, if you've got a new place, you'll have had somebody come out and drilled your well, and they would have told you how deep they drilled it when they put the pump in. Now, mine was only 48 feet, which doesn't seem very deep to me, but talking to the neighbors, that's not uncommon. But when I pulled that pump out of there, like I said, it was about this big, 3 gallons per minute. It's just not going to cut it for how I use water. So, like I said, I bought this off of Amazon. It had very good reviews, save one, and it's the cord that came with it. Now, this particular pump is rated at 33 gallons per minute, 115 volts, 0.75 kilowatts, and it can go as deep as 210 feet, 207 feet is what's on here. Now, in order to make sure that you've got the right gauge of wire for this, and the reason why it's important is that the more resistance that is pulled through this wire, the hotter it gets, and that could cause problems with running your pump. Cause a short inside of it because it'll heat up, melt the insulation inside of it, and you'll end up having to pull this pump out again in a year or so. So, now, reason why I tell you all that is because of the kilowatts that this thing runs at, the horsepower and the voltage that's on here. Okay, we need to figure out how many amps it's going to pull. That way you have the right breaker that you're plugging this thing into. Now, in order to figure out amperage, amperage equals the watts divided by the voltage. So because this is in kilowatts, you multiply it by 1,000 to get watts. And then you divide that by 115 volts, which is what this one runs at. What we get is about 6.5, almost 7 amps of power that's pulled through this cord. Now at 50 feet, when you take that to the wire gauge, and I'll put a picture up here, and I'll put a link down below for what a wire gauge looks like, and it tells you how many amps that the wire is good to draw at how many feet, and it'll tell you the type of gauge that you need to pull, that you need to put on here. Now, what came with this pump is 17 gauge. I've heard of 18, I've heard 16, 14. They usually don't. They go in twos, even. This is 17 gauge wire. This barely cuts what I need to do with this pump. Excuse me. Got the GoPro out here. I was going to take some other videos on this thing, but I think we're doing fairly well with what we got going on here. Now, like I said, this wire barely cuts what we need to do for what I plan to. I don't want to be pulling this pump out in a year because there's a problem with it, only because we've got the wrong cord on here. What I did was, after I did all the calculations, figured out the type of cord that I need, and what it came up to was I needed a 12 gauge cord for 50 feet. If I'm going to go more than 50 feet, actually above 70 feet, or deeper than 70 feet, which this one is allotted for, then I need to put a 10 gauge wire on here. But we're only going 50 feet, so I'm good up to using 12 gauge cable. Now, the easiest way that, and I could have just bought raw cable or 3-wire cable and then tapped it into this pump and then fixed the other end to a plug so I can plug this in. The cable cost about the same, so what I ended up doing was just buying 100 feet of extension cord. So the one end, one end's all ready to go. So all I need to do is plug it in. There we go. Pull this out. All right. Don't rocket science here. 100 feet, 12 gauge, 3-wire. Okay. Good up to 15 amps. Okay. Plenty of cable and wire that I'm not gonna have to worry about this thing overheating. So there we go. This part gets plugged right into the wall because this has got its own built-in control center in it, where some pumps you have to add that onto the wall to plug it in to make this all work. So what I'll end up doing is I'll cut this end off. And you may think, well, what a waste of a cord. Well, I know this is going to work properly. So what I'll end up doing is cutting this end off of it, splicing it back, and tying it into this pump. So without further ado, let's do that right now. All right. Okay, so we're back here. Now, one of the other things about this particular pump, and I'll link this pump in the comments below so that you can go see it yourself. But the other bad thing that they said that some people questioned was the internal check valve that's on this thing. And if you don't know what a check valve is, it's just a one-way valve. Fluid can go in one direction, but it can't go back the other way. So why is that important for a pump is that depending on how deep this has to go, you don't want to fill that entire pipe up with water and then have it drain all the way back into your well every time this pump runs. That means the pump's got to prime up, fill the pipe all the way with water, so there's always a constant delay of water getting to your house. The check valve prevents all that water from going backwards into the pump, and it keeps that pipe full of water. Now, the internal one here, from what I read, does not work very well, so what I did was buy another one. So if you look down inside here, when the water goes in, it'll open that valve. I'm not sure if you can see that. Okay, so it allows the water to come out, and then when it stops, that plunger comes back down and all the water sits right on top of it. Now it's ready for the next time you turn on the faucet. In order to, so we'll be putting that on. That'll go right on the end here. and then from there, this bib will go on top of it. And you want to use brass. I like brass because it's not going to corrode and it's not going to break very easily. This pump is very heavy. It's about 30 pounds. So with all that weight on it, the plastic could potentially break. So that's why I'm using brass. And brass doesn't corrode. Don't use steel because eventually you'll have to pull this thing out of here because it'll leak. The corrosion will eat through it, and then you have to start all over again. And ideally, you don't want to have to mess with your water pump. So we'll put those over to the side there. That's for installation. All right. Now the cord goes into here, so I have yet to take this thing apart, so you'll have to excuse me. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into here. So, but the only way to do that is get into it. So there's 4 screws that's holding this casing on that'll go down to the pump. This is the actual pump part of it, okay? It's splined into the motor. This being the motor, okay? When pumps go bad, could be the motor, okay? Or it could be the pump that's seized up. The reason why you have this strainer around the inlet of the pump is to keep debris from getting inside of the pump. After years of use, what happens is it starts getting gunked up inside of the pump itself, and it'll seize up the motor. It can't start up. Okay, so this pump was cheap enough that I wouldn't even bat an eye. Just buy another one to replace it, but you can get up to $1,000 for these oil pumps, and I can buy 5 of these for some of those expensive ones. Even if I were to change this every couple of years, it may be worth doing that versus buying a single one for $2,000 that I'm going to end up changing out every couple of years anyway. So that's just a little tip for me. So far, what we've got is we've separated the pump from the motor. All right, let's continue on. There's a snap ring down here at the bottom that holds this whole casing together. These aren't the right tools for this. The fact that I have to do this with this type of pump is probably the reason why it's only $150 versus $1,000. but I'm okay with it. I feel like I'm handy enough that I can do this. I barely even pulled on this cable, and the ground wire is already broken off. Barely. One of the things I've got some concerns here with on my ability to do this, it seems like this pump is oil filled. So when I pulled the cap off of there, like I said, I barely even pulled this off. You can see this wire. I'm assuming this is the ground wire, though it's not marked as such. Generally, you have a white, a black, and a green wire. What I got is a black and blue and a black. So, but actually, yeah, I'm not really sure. This wire is black, yellow, and green. And I got a black and blue wire. Alright, I need to get something to put this in. I should warn you guys that by doing this, you void the warranty of your pump. Okay, you can't send it back, you can't call them out and say, hey, this thing doesn't work. Once you pull this thing apart, you voided your warranty. So make sure that you're capable of doing this before you actually take it apart. What I gotta do, since I've already committed to doing this, okay, so what we got here? I wonder, Okay, what I'm trying to do here is get this sleeve off. I'm not really exactly sure how I'm going to do that. I thought maybe I could push down on it, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. I don't want to break the casing. Problem is I don't have all my tools with me. So I'm kind of improvising here. It's not the proper way of doing all of this, but like I said, I don't have all my tools with me because okay, there we go. That took a little bit of extra time figuring out. There's an O-ring around here that seals across there, okay? Bearing here fits inside the housing inside. We'll set this off to the side.